What turns a king into a slave rarely happens in a single moment. It begins silently, almost imperceptibly, the instant a man believes that love will save him from his own solitude. He does not see that in seeking refuge in another, he slowly abandons the throne he built within himself. The strength that once defined him dissolves into the need for validation from someone outside his own being. And by the time he notices, he is no longer master of his choices, but captive to a game he never understood. Many men believe they surrender out of love, but in reality, they surrender out of fear. Fear of loss, fear of loneliness, fear of inadequacy. This vulnerability is exploited, not out of conscious malice, but because feminine psychology operates on a different plane of perception. While he moves to protect, she observes to test. While he offers stability, she desires movement. The throne beneath him becomes unstable the moment he assumes it is secure. Machiavelli warned that those who do not understand power inevitably become tools within its game. In love and attraction, this truth is even harsher. The strong man believes he governs the relationship through strength, but overlooks the subtler rules of influence. It is not in loud declarations, but in quiet, seemingly innocent gestures where the balance of power shifts. And when he finally realizes it, he no longer rules. He obeys. The stories of fallen kings are not different from the stories of ordinary men who lost themselves. They all share the same tragic flaw, believing that feminine love is stable, predictable, and logical. But desire is not logical, and the harder he tries to control it, the further he drifts from the center of the game. By confusing surrender with dominance, the man forfeits the very autonomy that made him desirable in the first place. The mistake is not in loving, but in believing that love alone is enough. No woman truly desires a man who abandons himself just to have her. No woman respects a man who bargains away his dignity to ensure her presence. The more he bends to please, the more he awakens within her an ancient instinct she does not control. To push, to test, to see where his boundaries collapse. Feminine desire is drawn less to what a man gives and more to what he represents. This is why so many men lose everything trying to win someone who, paradoxically, withdraws once she senses total possession. What begins as deep attraction quietly transforms into detachment. Passion fades into calculation. In his attempt to give more to gain more, he trades his crown for chains without noticing. The feminine psyche is complex precisely because it is paradoxical. She wants his power but desires him only, while sensing she cannot fully control it. She seeks security but is drawn to uncertainty. She wants to be chosen, yet constantly tests whether he chooses himself before her. Each small weakness exposed carries a cost, and every act of silent surrender moves him closer to devaluation. Many men confuse proximity with possession. They believe that constancy guarantees love, that promises ensure loyalty, that sacrifices by devotion. But the deepest connections are not built through endless concessions. They are sustained through boundaries. A man's value is not measured by what he gives up, but by what he refuses to abandon, even for the sake of someone he loves. Feminine tests are not conscious manipulation, but biological calibrations. These patterns are ancient and automatic, designed to identify men who stand firm rather than collapse under pressure. Failing these tests costs more than respect. It extinguishes attraction. Deep within, the instinct registers. If he bends out of fear of losing me, he is not fit to lead. And once recorded, this signal is nearly irreversible. Most men do not see the signs. They trust words, ignore gestures, and dismiss silence. They fail to notice when the language changes, when her gaze cools, when her presence shifts from desire to obligation. In denying reality, they prolong the inevitable. The moment they discover they no longer sit on the throne, no longer set the terms, no longer resemble the man she once respected. Feminine communication exists more in what is demonstrated than in what is spoken. A smile can hide contempt, affection can mask distance, and silence can scream louder than words. Men who cannot read these signals live trapped in surface narratives, while those who perceive them gain access to deeper layers of truth. The difference determines whether one maintains power or becomes enslaved by illusion. There is no neutrality in these dynamics. Every decision, every concession, every act of self-control or self-abandonment subtly shifts perceived value. While he believes a gesture of surrender brings them closer, it often achieves the opposite. Love rarely dies from lack of sacrifice. It dies when sacrifice destroys the very qualities that inspired desire. This is why so many men fall into the trap of thinking more investment solves everything. More texts, more gifts, more constant availability, more demonstrations of affection. But attraction does not respond to quantity. It responds to the perception of value. If he no longer represents leadership over his own life, no external effort can restore the image she once had of him. A man who abandons his identity to please becomes predictable, and predictability suffocates passion. Women do not always express this openly, but they feel it deeply. Instinct craves novelty, intensity, challenge. Once he becomes entirely known, stripped of mystery, her desire seeks stimulation elsewhere, not necessarily out of malice, but out of a biological demand for tension and polarity. The erosion of masculine power almost never arrives through open confrontation. It happens in small, unnoticed compromises. Every forced yes, every boundary overlooked, every silenced opinion corrodes his image. Slowly, leadership becomes compliance, presence becomes dependency, attraction becomes obligation, and by the time he realizes, he is lost within himself. The cruel irony is that by destroying himself to keep her, he destroys the very foundation of what drew her in. Attraction is born from tension, and tension requires symbolic distance. It is the space between two people that creates magnetism. When he eliminates that distance through total surrender, he extinguishes the spark that once made him unique among all others. Machiavelli wrote that one must learn to be feared before hoping to be loved. In desire, this translates to cultivating unpredictability, mystery, and unshakable boundaries. Respect grows from self-possession, not constant appeasement. Without the capacity to hold the line, the man becomes a subject within his own kingdom, dethroned by his willingness to serve. The men who retain their position understand an uncomfortable truth. Love does not require endless surrender. Real love survives only where balance exists, between intimacy and autonomy, vulnerability and strength, presence and mystery. This equilibrium cannot be negotiated or begged for. It is expressed in how a man positions himself within the world. If you have followed this far, it means you are seeking to understand the invisible mechanisms that govern relationships and how to preserve your place without losing yourself. This is where awareness becomes power. Subscribe to this channel and continue learning the truths most people are too afraid to confront. What many men call love is, in reality, an endless exchange of signals, evaluations, and tests. Women do not perform these tests consciously. They are embedded deep in biology, shaping attraction and respect without deliberate intent. They are not designed to manipulate, but to measure, to see whether a man remains solid when the world pressures him to bend. Every reaction answers the unspoken question, can he be trusted to lead? These tests are rarely obvious. They appear as subtle provocations, playful challenges, or harmless requests, but their purpose runs deeper than the surface suggests. They separate men who act from principle from those who fold to please. The more predictable he becomes, the faster desire withers. Instinct seeks tension, not submission. Masculine strength is not the absence of emotion, but the capacity to govern one's actions despite them. The man who reacts impulsively to every word, every silence, every mood, reveals a lack of control. Over-explaining, over-apologizing, over-promising. Each exposes insecurity she instinctively perceives, not through logic, but through quiet observation. One of men's greatest mistakes is believing generosity is a strategy. They assume more attention, more gifts, more constant presence naturally deepen desire. But excess provision signals scarcity of value. If he offers everything without being asked, where is the challenge? Where is the conquest? By confusing giving with investing, he unknowingly funds his own devaluation. The paradox of feminine testing confuses most men. The more she cares, the more she tests. Expecting less resistance when interest is high blinds them to reality. Desire thrives on confirmation of strength, and strength is proven under pressure. If he collapses too easily, the instinctive conclusion is clear. This man cannot be trusted to stand when it matters most. Emotional stability is the silent foundation of masculine respect. A man who spirals into jealousy, insecurity, or desperation communicates instability at a level words cannot repair. The attraction dies not from lack of effort, but from lack of groundedness. Women desire certainty, not perfection, strength, not control, presence, not panic. Machiavelli's timeless insight applies here. To rule outwardly, one must first rule inwardly. In relationships, sovereignty over the self radiates silent authority. Men who place their worth in another's hands inevitably lose power, but those who cultivate self-reliance project rare magnetism. And that magnetism, more than declarations or promises, sustains respect. Mystery, then, is not manipulation. It is biology. A man who does not reveal everything at once preserves polarity. Desire craves unpredictability because the brain associates novelty with reward. When he becomes entirely known, his value diminishes, not because she stops loving, but because her instinct stops chasing. Tension dies where everything is given away. Seduction operates on layers beyond conscious awareness. Words and actions rarely align perfectly. What she chooses and what she wants are not always the same. Her logic is symbolic, not linear. She may ask for security while longing for intensity, demand stability while seeking challenge. Understanding this paradox unlocks the true field where attraction is negotiated. This is why being the good guy often fails. Men assume that being endlessly agreeable, reliable, and predictable guarantees affection. But comfort does not equal desire. A man may earn respect this way, but rarely passion. The balance lies between dependability and the unknown, between safety and spark, a space most fail to navigate. Attraction and comfort do not grow in proportion. In many cases, the more comfort he provides, the less polarity survives. This is not ingratitude but biology classifying him: partner, provider, or friend. If she no longer feels the charge that fuels desire, she places him in a role where passion cannot exist. The hardest tests are silent ones. When she withdraws, delays responses, or creates subtle distance, she is measuring his response without realizing it. The insecure man panics, clings, and demands clarity. The grounded man observes, remains composed, and maintains his position. In silence, respect is either earned or destroyed. The more she perceives consistency, the deeper admiration grows. Desire and respect cannot exist separately. They amplify one another or they die together. Excessive pursuit, constant availability, and emotional dependency corrode both. Paradoxically, when he demonstrates he can walk alone, she feels drawn closer without knowing why. Machiavelli taught that power rests in perception, not possession. In relationships, value is measured by what a man refuses as much as by what he accepts. Men who allow everything lose significance, not because she wants conflict, but because boundaries communicate strength. To hold position, one must sometimes risk distance. No woman sustains desire for a man who abandons his core principles. This has little to do with morality and everything to do with instinct. Consistency signals survival. Inconsistency signals risk. A man who changes values to avoid discomfort unconsciously communicates weakness, and feminine instinct reacts accordingly. Respect fades first, desire soon after. The gravest mistake men make is believing her words reveal her entire truth. Feminine communication operates across channels: expression, body language, silence. A cheerful tone can conceal resentment. A soft touch can mask withdrawal. Men who read only the surface become servants to illusion, blind to the realities shaping attraction beneath language. What separates the man who maintains his throne from the man who loses it is internal clarity. Knowing who he is and what cannot be negotiated creates a quiet force that needs no defense. It protects him from subtle manipulation, conscious or not, and shields his value from constant erosion. Without that clarity, he becomes reactive, not sovereign. Ironically, many men misinterpret these tests as personal attacks when, in reality, they are invitations to evolve. Feminine instinct wants confirmation. Is his strength authentic or an act? Every challenge whispers the same question. Are you truly who you claim to be? The wise man does not defend, he demonstrates. The weak man pleads and loses both desire and respect at once. Mastering these dynamics is not about control, but awareness. Power is not built by manipulating her behavior, but by mastering your own. A man who achieves this does not fear abandonment because he cannot be abandoned by himself. Ironically, it is this independence that makes him irreplaceable in the first place. What destroys a man is rarely love itself, but the illusion that he can control it. He believes that, with enough devotion, he can bend feminine desire to his expectations. But desire does not obey promises, it does not respond to reason, and it does not submit to linear logic. The man who tries to dominate it ends up consumed by it. The fall begins when he confuses possession with security. By believing someone belongs to him, he forgets that attraction must be constantly renewed, not won once and preserved forever. What drew her to him in the beginning, his strength, his autonomy, his rarity, slowly erodes. He trades the mystery that created desire for comfort that kills it. Feminine desire is fluid, reactive, and deeply connected to context. A man who clings to static rules fails to understand this dynamic force. What excites today may bore tomorrow, not because she is disloyal, but because biology demands stimulation and novelty. He falls when he assumes that yesterday's effort guarantees tomorrow's passion. The cruelest trap is that his sacrifices often accelerate the loss of what he's trying to protect. Each concession removes another layer of tension, replacing magnetism with predictability. Women respect consistency, but they are not drawn to stagnation. Without realizing it, he engineers the very boredom that pushes her away. Machiavelli warned that power lost slowly is rarely recovered. In relationships, this erosion happens quietly, almost invisibly. There is no single betrayal, no dramatic event, only subtle shifts. Words become softer, gestures less intentional, eyes less attentive. By the time he notices, the throne is already empty. Feminine logic operates beneath conscious awareness, guided by instincts older than civilization. It seeks strength but tests it constantly, desires stability but is drawn to risk, craves security yet is ignited by challenge. The man who fails to understand this paradox interprets these contradictions as personal rejection instead of biological truth. The illusion of control blinds him to the rules of the game. He believes love is preserved through loyalty alone, ignoring that attraction is not bound by moral contracts. Desire does not care about promises. It responds to perception. When she no longer perceives him as the man she once desired, her body withdraws long before her words do. Every fall from power begins with self-betrayal. The king becomes a slave the moment he abandons his identity to preserve connection. Each time he silences his boundaries to avoid conflict, he communicates weakness without realizing it. And feminine instinct is ruthless in sensing weakness, not to punish it, but to seek leadership elsewhere. What he sees as devotion, she often registers as dependence. The more he orbits around her approval, the less gravitational force he exerts on her desire. The attraction that once pulled her closer collapses into the void of predictability. He thought love required total surrender. She desired the man who never surrendered at all. The tragedy is that his downfall is rarely deliberate. Most men fall slowly, one small compromise at a time, one ignored principle, one desperate apology, one unnecessary explanation. And each act, harmless in isolation, contributes to an invisible narrative. The king is no longer untouchable, and power rarely survives once questioned. Feminine psychology responds more to what is felt than to what is said. Words lose meaning when behavior contradicts them. A man who claims strength but acts from fear creates cognitive dissonance she cannot ignore. Her respect erodes not because of what he lacks, but because of what he abandons. Power in relationships does not come from domination, but from sovereignty. A man who governs himself commands silent authority without force or threat. This self-possession creates an unspoken magnetism that no declaration of love can replace. Ironically, the more he seeks to prove his worth, the more he signals he has already lost it. The masculine illusion is believing that love and loyalty can be secured through effort alone. But no amount of gifts, promises, or sacrifices can replace the presence of a man who values himself above all else. When he loses himself to preserve her, he teaches her the most dangerous lesson, that his value depends on her choice. It is not cruelty that drives her to test him, but biology. Instinct seeks confirmation that he can withstand tension, lead without fear, and preserve his position under pressure. These tests are not personal attacks. They are unconscious calibrations of his strength. Passing them sustains desire. Failing them reshapes it into indifference. What makes this dynamic so unforgiving is that once respect is gone, attraction rarely survives. She may stay, but the polarity is broken. Conversations become transactional. Intimacy feels mechanical, and every gesture carries the weight of obligation rather than passion. The king remains in the castle, but his crown has already fallen. Machiavelli understood that perception governs reality. In love, this is amplified. Her desire responds to the man he embodies, not the man he claims to be. When his actions communicate scarcity, fear, or neediness, she no longer sees the leader she once admired. And when her perception shifts, the balance of power is lost. To avoid this fate, a man must learn to value tension over comfort, autonomy over approval, and identity over attachment. This does not mean coldness or manipulation, but clarity. Love thrives when it is chosen freely, not when it is maintained through fear of abandonment. Without self-respect, no affection can survive. The king falls when he forgets that love is never owned. It is continually earned. He assumes permanence where there is only negotiation, stability where there is constant recalibration. Desire is dynamic, and those who refuse to adapt lose influence over it. The throne is not stolen in a single act. It is surrendered piece by piece. In the end, the true tragedy is not that he loved, but that he loved blindly. By ignoring the nature of desire, he sacrifices his essence in exchange for security that never existed. The transformation from king to slave happens not in her hands, but in his abandonment of self. And once surrendered, the path back to power is rarely found.